Hey guys, we are back to writing more proofs, right? Okay, so when writing proofs, kids always tell me, Mrs. Tran-Bloom, it always looks so easy when I do it. Or, it always look easy when you do it. Which, hello, duh. I went to school, right? Got my degree both in my undergrad and master's, so I have a lot of experience in writing proofs. So, if you are struggling, then just try it out, okay? Go through all the guideline to see which option you can use, right? So that's all you can do. You're gonna need a big eraser because we're gonna be erasing a lot. So let's try. Let me find my eraser. Where is that at? Here we go. Here we go. That's my eraser. Um, so let's start with C. We are going to pick the more difficult side. Would you agree? So first, we're going to write the question down. Sine square of theta minus tangent of theta all over cosine square of theta minus cotangent of theta. And my goal is to go here. Equals to nice and simple tangent square of theta. Which is, hey, if you want to go from here to there, by all means, you can choose. But I can probably tell you that it's more difficult to do so. So let's start from the heavier side, sine square of theta minus tangent of theta all over cosine square of theta minus cotangent of theta. One of the guidelines said, hey, you know what? Break everything down to sine and cosine. Let's try to do that. Why not? So, the next step, sine square of theta, it's just, obviously, sine square of theta over 1. Minus tangent of theta is going to be sine of theta all over cosine of theta. So that's my numerator. I'm going to divide using this notation. Cosine square of theta all over 1. Subtract. Cotangent of theta is going to be cosine of theta divided by sine of theta. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can find the LCD, right? Common denominator. So this one has a common denominator of cosine. So that goes cosine. That means I'm going to multiply this by cosine. So cosine of theta times sine square of theta. And this one, I don't have to do anything, so I'm just going to bring that down. I'm still going to divide. This one's going to have the common denominator of sine. I'm going to multiply this one by sine. So here we go. Sine of theta, cosine square of theta, subtract. I don't need to do anything with that numerator, so just carry down. What else can I do from here on out? Looks like they have that piece in common on this piece, right? And looks like this one has that piece in common. But why don't we, let's see, why don't we multiply? Okay, and then take its reciprocal. So we are going to go, hey, cosine of theta, sine of theta minus sine of theta all over cosine of theta times sine of theta all over sine of theta cosine square of theta minus cosine of theta. So what I did was I multiplied by its reciprocal. So from here, remember I'm trying to do step by step. Okay, when I'm grading all of these, there's no way I can read your mind of what you're doing. So it's better to be long than short. Okay, because if the moment I stop and I write a question mark on it, then I'm just not going to give you any more credit. So make sure you're just kind of taking it step by step. Okay, so this one looks like I have a sine of theta in common. So pull that out. That means I'm left with cosine of theta times sine of theta minus 1 all over my denominator times sine of theta divided by, this one has cosine of theta in common. So pull that out. I have sine of theta times cosine of theta minus 1. Okay. Did that help at all? So did that help us at all in any shape or form? As you can tell, cosine of theta times sine of theta minus 1 is the same thing as sine of theta times cosine theta minus 1, right? Because when you multiply, it's commutative, so this can be first, so that can be first. So those two will cancel. You continue up here. Step 7. Since those will cancel, now I have sine of theta over cosine of theta times sine of theta times cosine of theta. And, oh, multiply across. That gives me sine square of theta times cosine square of theta. And no, you cannot go straight from there to tangent square of theta. So make sure you're just writing step by step. That sounds like a song. Okay. And sine square of theta divided by cosine square of theta is tangent square of theta, and that is where we want to get to. Yay! Right? And you don't want to write ATB on your paper. You want to write your own initial. Right? Okay. So, with that said, hopefully that is easier now. What I'm going to do is, let's see how many more examples we have. We have 3 more examples, okay? D, E, and F. And the reason I'm doing a lot of examples is I want you to see what are some of the strategies I'm using. After a while, you're all gonna use the same like 4 or 5 guidelines that we had before. Okay, this one, they both look very similar, right? This one has cosine on the top. This one has cosine on the bottom. This one has 1 plus sign. This one has 1 minus sign. So not one is more difficult than another. So for this one, you can just pick. Let's pick. I have not picked, but one will pick the left since these are equally easy. I'm gonna pick the right. But I'm just gonna pretend that these problems come straight from your book. So I'm just gonna write the problem all over again. Okay. So I'm gonna pick the right hand side. So that's what the following step is. Okay, so here's what I have chosen to do my proof, and I want to go to that side. So this is my goal, okay? I want cosine on the top and sine on the bottom. One of the strategies said go and multiply, okay? Go and multiply by its conjugate. So I'm just going to write this over and multiply by the conjugate. That means 1 minus sine of theta, 1 minus sine of theta. Notice right away, you can tell that this is now on the bottom. See that right there? So that's going to be when you multiply the conjugates, you just have to multiply the first. 1 square is 1. Sine times sine is sine square, minus sine square. All over cosine of theta times 1 minus sine of theta. Okay? So, well, 1 minus sine square of theta, I'm using this identity. Cosine square of theta plus sine square of theta equals 1. So with that said, if I subtract sine square of theta to both sides, I would end up with cosine square of theta all over cosine of theta times 1 minus sine of theta. Okay, and look at this. I can reduce. Way to go, Mrs. Tran-Bloom. Okay, reduce that. That's 1 left on the top, and this one's gone. So now I have cosine of theta divided by 1 minus sine of theta, and voila, I have what I needed to get to, which is this side. So therefore, put your initial. My initial is ATB, Angie Tran-Bloom. So I'm good, right? Doesn't that feel good? Okay, so on our next problem, what I would love for you to do first is try it out on your own. Okay, so hit pause right now. Try it out on your own. That way you can feel good about it, okay? And then, if you get really stuck, then you can come back and watch the video. But go ahead and hit pause. Okay, now that you are done with trying this on your own, or have attempted it a few times, let's see if you and I are on the same page. Okay, I'm gonna pick that one. That right side looks a lot scarier than the left. So that's where I'm going to start. So again, I'm going to pretend that this is from the book. So I'm just going to copy the problem down. Then I'm going to pick this side, the right side, to start. Remember, you cannot do both sides at the same time. You pick one or the other. Never, ever both. Not even a little bit. Okay, so with that, well, one of the strategies said that I might need to convert it to all sines and cosine. So let's see that. So this is 1 over sine of theta, subtract sine of theta, all over 1. I'm just going to make that into a fraction because this is a fraction. And then this one is divided by sine with this symbol, but I'm going to do this. Okay, divided by sine of theta, all over 1. So I'm just converting this into a new symbol. Really, no, not a big deal. Then from here, what I'm going to do is, common denominator? What do you think? Common denominator would be sine, right? So here we go, sine of theta. This one, I'm not going to change anything. But this one, I would have to multiply the numerator by sine. So sine times sine will be sine squared. And divide that by sine of theta. Oh, identity, right? Look at this, 1 minus sine squared. I'm going to use cosine square of theta plus sine square of theta equals 1. So if I subtract sine square of theta to both sides, I'm going to have a cosine square of theta. So this turns itself into cosine square of theta. So this next step, I'm going to go cosine square of theta all over sine of theta. I'm going to change this division to multiplication of its inverse. I'm going to put that into a fraction. So, alrighty then. Then I'm going to multiply that out. So step 6, cosine square of theta divided by sine square of theta. Then the cosine square of theta divided by sine square of theta. It does turn itself into my goal, which is cotangent square of theta. And I'm going to do my happy dance. Alright, and happy dance, happy dance. Okay. And now we're on our very last proof of the notes. Here you go. Alright, now, if you were successful with the first one, why don't you hit pause and try this one on your own? If you were not successful with the first one, I'm sorry, not with the first one, but part E, then you have more. There's more of a reason for you to hit pause and try this really on your own. We have done so many, and by this time, you need to be able to do this all by yourself. Okay? So hit pause. Pause. Thank you. Okay. Now that you have tried it on your own, I'm going to work this out with you to see if it makes sense. So, again, I'm going to pretend that this is from your book. So I'm just going to copy it all over again. Which one looks more difficult? Definitely that side, right? The left. So I'm going to pick the left. 1 minus cosecant of theta times sine to the third. Oops, not sin. Sine to the third of theta. That looks so ugly. Look at that mess. Sorry. So it should be sine to the third of theta. Equals cos. Oh, I don't want both sides. Oh. And I use a pen, so that is awful. So, okay, do not need to write both sides. Okay. So one of my guidelines said I should convert things to a sine and cosine since everything's in sine. I'm just gonna try to do if I can. 1 minus cosecant of theta becomes 1 over sine of theta times sine to the third of theta over, I'm just going to make that into a fraction because if that's a fraction, this looks better with a fraction. Then step 4, whoa, you have sine to the third of theta here, you have sine here, they can totally reduce, right? So if I reduce it, I have sine square of theta left because one of that is going to go into, see that right there? Alright. Then using my identity. Oh my goodness. Right? Isn't that cool? How it just kind of... It's like, reminds me of, what is that movie that all the cars... Transformer! Oh, look at that. Like, it transformed, right? From one to another. Alright, so using this identity, this is going to turn itself into cosine square of theta. And that's really my goal. That's where I want to get to. And done. I am done transforming. Alright, this is the end of the video, and I hope you're having an awesome day.